Welcome to the Choosing My Religion podcast. I'm Michael H., and in this video, we're going over the International Churches of Christ International Christian Church First Principles Study Series, study number 8, the final study, Counting the Cost. So counting the cost is a step that every single member that has ever come and gone through the International Church of Christ or the International Christian Church has gone through. This is the one study that no matter which congregation you engaged with, you did this one. And it's less of a Bible study and more of a kind of interview for final commitment. So fair warning, this video is going to be a couple of minutes longer than my other ones, but I think it's really important to understand how this study is structured and why and what's going to be asked during it. So counting the cost. It's usually one-on-one with the lead evangelist. The lead evangelist is a term used by these churches for whoever's in charge, the main preacher. And so sometimes the person that started the studies with you will be in with you, but very, very rarely is this going to be multiple people. And oftentimes it's the lead evangelist because they weren't involved in your studies. And so there's kind of this outside perspective, right? So they're going to confirm not only that you're committed, but that all of the disciples that conducted your studies did an adequate job. So this is just as much an interview for you as it is a check on the quality of their work in indoctrinating you to the group. There may be a reading of Luke 14:25-33. Jesus talks about counting the cost before you build a tower, before somebody goes out to war. The idea is that they want to ensure that the recruit fully understands the commitment and is willing to make Jesus Lord in every single aspect of their life. It's kind of like a baptism interview. I want to walk through what those key pieces that absolutely will be covered during this study. So the leader, usually the lead evangelist or an elder at the church, if they have elders, will go over each of these major points on discipleship and ask for your agreement and your readiness. What will that include? It's going to include the lordship of Christ. So is Jesus Lord of your life? Are you willing to go anywhere, do anything, sacrifice everything for Jesus, which by extension means for the church? They're definitely going to check in on your understanding of the salvation doctrine of the church. Do you understand repentance and baptism? So they'll take you back to the light and darkness study, and you'll need to explain to them and confirm that you understand that baptism is the point of salvation, and anybody who has not repented and been baptized as an adult is not saved. They'll check in on your repentance. So many times people come into the study series with a girlfriend or a boyfriend, with a certain job that the church finds unacceptable. And so they'll tell you that if you want to be saved, you have to get rid of that. This is a story told over and over and over and over and over again by members and ex-members of the group. It's a high control group. This is one of those areas where they exert extreme control. So they'll check in, make sure that that breakup happened. If you were living with somebody, you moved out. And if you haven't yet, then it's going to be a full stop on the process. You will not be baptized until you've taken those steps. They're going to ask you to confirm that you understand the commitment to the church, that you are committing to attend all meetings, that you will give contribution regularly and generously, and that you will do whatever the leaders ask for you to do because you're following them as they're following Jesus. They'll confirm that you understand the church authority. They're going to establish that you need to seek advice before you make decisions in your life. Seek advice oftentimes becomes seek permission. They will not say that explicitly, but it is implicit. You need to be humble to their correction, and you need to follow the directives of leadership. They're basically confirming that you're in submission. They're going to challenge you on what you would do or say if your family or friends push back on your baptism. Look, the reality is that in 2025, when, somebody's joining this group, this is a known high control group. This is considered a cult by many. And so your family will have likely noticed the distancing. Maybe now you've been telling, Uncle John, who took you to church as a child, that he's not a real Christian because he wasn't baptized or he's not a member of the ICOC. And they can do a quick Google search, and they will, and it's going to be cult all the way down the list. So when they come to you and challenge you on that, what are you going to say? And if the recruit, says that they're ready for that, they're okay with, then they'll give you some pointers on how you can approach that, and ultimately, they're going to want to try to bring your family into the organization. But they will frame up anybody challenging the views of the church or the practices of the church as persecution. Very common. They're going to talk to you about submitting your future dreams and your major life plans to Christ through the church. Potentially going on a mission team, living in a house with other singles for an extended period of time so that you can give more, where you choose, what type of job you choose to have so that you can be available to the church. Very, very common, especially for college students and single men and women. They're going to talk to you about your finances and expectations of your giving, not just in your regular contribution, which supports the ongoing work of your local church, but then also your special contribution, which will have some type of multiplier, 10 times or 20 times your normal contribution. They may have missions. They may have special missions. They may have a winter harvest or a summer harvest. So, they're siphoning money all year long. And so they're going to make sure that you understand that you're supporting the work of God and his kingdom, and that you're committed to doing that. They're going to make sure that you understand that your relationships romantically need to be with people in the church. There's an absolute no-fly zone on having romantic relationships with people who are not members of the group. So they'll need to confirm that you understand that and you agree to it. Lastly, they're going to talk about total commitment, being sold out, being fired up, being all in. Are you willing to be a disciple for life? Remember, there's no turning back. Maybe they'll say, what will you do if you ever feel like things are getting hard? What they want to hear from you is, I'll never leave God's church. They're definitely looking in this session to understand if there's any reluctance or questions that you have lingering, because they're going to want to address them at this time. It is definitely not uncommon for your baptism to be postponed until they can get the level of commitment that they want from these questions that they're asking. You have to answer these things correctly and show full commitment in order to move on. If everything goes well, they will have captured a verbal commitment. Many ICOC churches actually have members sign a membership agreement card or a checklist affirming each of those points. At the end of the session, if you've passed all of that gating, the evangelist will pray with you and then either schedule your baptism if it hasn't been scheduled yet, or go together to your baptism. So what is this final indoctrination function of the Counting the Cost study? This is the capstone on indoctrination. It locks in your decisions and your agreements in a very formal way with the highest authority inside of that church. It elicits and requires a series of personal vows from the recruit. It tests for any remaining resistance that they'll need to overcome. It reinforces the seriousness of that commitment, no turning back. And it finalizes the transfer of control. The recruit is giving up the free will gifted to them by the Creator and handing it over to the church leaders. Lastly, it withholds the prize of salvation until compliance is secured. So it's a gate. When you pass that gate, you have the joy of knowing that you will be saved. Counting the cost is where the recruit kind of signs on the dotted line. Everything up to this point, all of the studies have been leading up to this covenantal moment. A covenant between you and the church. After this, the recruit's baptized and inducted as a member of the church. That's a very public event. I will do a video on what to expect at a baptism. But this final step is this commitment of allegiance to the church and to the group's way of life. It reviews all of the expectations, both personal, doctrinal, in the community of believers in the kingdom, and it makes sure that the recruit consciously, out loud, on paper, agrees to all of them. Counting the cost acts as the final checkpoint for the recruit handing over their life to the group. From this point on, to turn back would be to throw away your promises to God, to crucify Jesus all over again. From now on, in the mind of the recruit, they are fully his. And by extension, they're fully the group's. If you feel like these videos explaining how these studies indoctrinate have been helpful, please give them a like and share them so that others can walk in with their eyes wide open. Over 1 million people have come in and out of this organization. Multitudes of thousands of families torn apart. People injured, traumas, abuses. Sharing this work is easy to do, but could make a big difference for somebody who doesn't know what they're getting involved in. And like I say, everyone has the right to choose their religion. And so if you choose the ICOC, the ICC, the RCW, that's your choice. But I hope you do it with your eyes wide open and understanding what it is. Thanks for joining.